Hello everyone and welcome back to our course. In this lecture we are going to use another library known as Bokeh in order to create our charts. We'll start with a line chart. I'm going to create a new code cell here. Then from bokeh.plotting I'm going to import the figure function. Then I can call this figure function and I can plot in here to create a new figure with Bokeh instead of pyplot. Here I can put in a plot width, for example, 1,000, and a plot height, I can do 1,000 as well. So I'm just going to extract that to a constant. I'll call this my plot side length, and I'll set it to 1,000. That way we can more easily adjust that later. Okay, then I'm going to store this as my figure plot, or I can call this my Bokeh figure. Okay, then this Bokeh figure I can call a type of chart, like a line chart with the line function. I have to pass in here my x, which is my dataset.index, the dates. Then my dataset at a certain column is going to be my y. Let's choose any of the columns, like a low perhaps. We haven't worked with low yet. Then we can call the show function to show the figure. I'm going to then run this code cell. Okay, we do have to define show. From bokeh.io, we're going to import the show function. All right, so that, you may be wondering why it's not showing the plot. Well, I'm also going to import one more function here called output notebook. Then I'm going to call output notebook just on its own like this. That is going to allow me to create this notebook that contains the Bokeh figure. Okay, the size is a bit large. Let's just bring that down to 700. All right, and here we go. All right, that's even still a bit large. We could do 500. Let's drop it down. So what I have here is y versus x, where y is my data set at the low column, the price of the Tesla stock on the low column, and I have dataset.index on the x, which represents the date. And you may be wondering what the date is there. Well, that is the date represented as a number. We can build many other types of plots with Bokeh. For example, we could make a scatter plot. So for that, let's create a new figure. I'm going to create here my scatter figure. I'll call the figure function again, and I'll pass in here a plot width. We can do the same plot width that we had, which was stored in plot side length. And same for plot height, we can use plot side length, 500. And we can also pass in optionally a title, an x-axis, and a y-axis label if we wanted to. But let's continue on for now. All right, we can add now different squares and circles known as glyphs. So these are different shapes onto our plot. For that, we just have to specify what we want to be our data. For example, I can call my scatter figure, and I can call here the circle function to create circles. In here, I have to pass in my circles x and y. So these will be data points in the shape of a circle. So I'll make here circle x. That is going to be my data set at one of my columns. Doesn't matter which one, could be open. All right, then I'm going to have circle y. Let's have data set will be close at the close column. So then when I call the circle function here, I'm going to pass in circle x and circle y. All right, then after that, I can set the output of my notebook to be this plot just by calling output notebook and calling show on my scatter figure. Then I'll rerun, or just run for the first time, this code cell, and look at that, we have a bunch of circles appearing, and that is for our circle plots here, where we have the y being the close and the x being the open. And we can actually put multiple graphs onto one graph. So to do that, let's make another type of plot point that will be a different shape, a square. So I'll call my scatter figure.square function this time. And I have to define, you got it, the square x and square y. So let's start with square x. We'll take our data set at one of the columns, for example, the high column. Then square y, we'll take our data set and we will grab it at one of the columns, like the low column. Then just like we did for circle, we have to pass in for square the square x and the square y. Then let me rerun this code cell, and we'll now actually have both on one. Look at this. Maybe hard for you to see because they're the same color, but we have circles and squares. And I can differentiate the colors. For example, for the circles, I could keep the default color, but then for my squares, I could set color to green. Then if I run this code cell, I'm going to have green squares and blue circles. So now we have two different plots on the same plot. All right, coming up, we are going to learn how we can build out three-dimensional plots using Matplotlib. So we're going to go back to Matplotlib. 3D is always fun, so head on over to the next lecture where we will work on that.